Welcome back to the 10-minute Bitcoin show. Gonna get you guys out of here before the next block. I don't have a bit today. What are we talking about? Well, I want to follow up some of my thoughts from yesterday. We talked about BSV. We talked about these talking points about hamstringing the Bitcoin protocol. I don't think I got through as much as I wanted to get through. You know, this 10-minute format, it's difficult. It's hard to operate within these constraints, but I think it's good. Let me read this tweet that I have. I posted this on the follow-up of yesterday's video. Bitcoin is programmable money, not a data storage protocol. Just because some people stupidly try to use Bitcoin as a very expensive and wasteful data storage protocol is not a good reason to make Bitcoin dumber, less programmable money. Conflating data storage with programmability in the public eye is how spooks gain ground to hamstring the Bitcoin protocol. Bitcoin, the permissionless peer-to-peer digital programmable cash protocol, cannot narrowly prohibit data storage schemes. It can and has, however, prohibited it generally by protocol design. Motivated attackers spam the chain and then say, look, unintended data storage, we need to reduce programmability. The truth is that using Bitcoin as programmable money works great. Using Bitcoin for data storage is extremely wasteful and expensive. Just because programmable money can be used for data storage by very motivated or very stupid and well-funded attackers is not a good justification for eliminating programmability. Just because people can and have built really stupid things with programmable money is not a good justification for eliminating programmability. Okay, so, you know, one of my biggest issues with the whole... I don't even like calling it a debate because it's never been a debate. I don't believe, I've said this before, but I am fundamentally at odds with the people who say that we have to change Bitcoin because you don't like spam and I don't like spam. So we all just need to come up with a compromise on how we're going to deal with the spam. It's like, no, what's actually going on is that spam exists, and that's just a nature of the fact that we have this permissionless programmable peer-to-peer cash protocol. And you're manufacturing conflict out of it by misrepresenting technical consensus. You know, what has been going on here for the last 6 months is we've seen a lot of influencers conflating consensus at the network level with rough consensus at the developer level, with economic consensus of the users. And it hasn't done us a lot of good, I would have to say. I can't shake this notion that people want me to think that there is a debate going on here, that people want me to think that there are two sides to this coin and that both sides have good arguments and that both sides' hearts are in the right place, but we just have to figure out how to compromise and meet in the middle. Guys, Bitcoin doesn't work like this. This is not a government shutdown. This is not a democracy. We're not voting on protocol changes here. That's certainly not how development works. Rough consensus doesn't require the approval of the unmeasurable masses of the internet, nor does it require the approval of the end user. The approval of the end user is obtained when they run the software, right? If users don't agree with the changes being made, they don't run the software. But when we start talking about network level consensus changes, guys, we're not going to do things like we're not going to risk network level consensus changes to try to slightly reduce like the data payload of like an arbitrary encoding scheme. First of all, we've talked about this again and again on the 10-minute Bitcoin show, and we're going to keep doing it. With Bitcoin, its denial of service countermeasures are proof of work, limited block size, and the fee market that basically lets any participants in the network bid on block space and compete against each other for the next available block. Miners get to select transactions from all of the available bidders in the mempool and decide what goes into the block and timestamp and order those transactions appropriately for the network as a market service. Bitcoin doesn't have this issue. No matter what goes into that block, you've got to pay per byte. Yes, if you're putting in witness data, you're getting that at a discounted rate compared to standard transaction data. That's by design. SegWit was added to Bitcoin for very good reason. It was to help make it more economic to spend your smaller UTXOs rather than creating new UTXOs from your big UTXOs. SegWit was a good upgrade. We needed SegWit also to fix transaction malleability. That's what enabled us to have trustless layer 2s like Lightning that allow for unilateral exit back to the base layer. We need Bitcoin to be programmable if we want it to scale to millions and billions of people. We're not going to arbitrarily limit it just because some people come along and want to stuff a bunch of data into a transaction and are willing to pay to do that, because it doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't accomplish anything to just take a transaction format and arbitrarily limit it, say from 256 bytes down to 160 or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't accomplish anything. And furthermore, I don't believe that there would even be network consensus for it. But that's beside the point. We're not going to forget. We're not going to forget the gaslighting. We're not going to forget the intentional misrepresenting of the terms. We're not going to forget the conflating of economic consensus with rough consensus with network consensus. We're not going to forget all of the blatant lies, the character assassinations of people who have dedicated their lives to contributing to this free and open source software protocol simply to be attacked for doing what they think is best in terms of delivering good technical optimization and technical upgrade to this peer-to-peer distributed cash protocol. You can have opinions on these things, but the rest of the world, particularly the rest of the Bitcoin network, is not entitled to take your opinion seriously, assume that you have valid points because your motivations are pure, and compromise with you by meeting you somewhere in the middle. That is just simply not how network consensus works. Network consensus is a Boolean, right? And we're not going to just arbitrarily restrict parts of the Bitcoin protocol when you've got to pay per byte no matter what you want to put on. And we already have very sufficient denial of service countermeasures in place, like proof of work, that make it exponentially more expensive to spam Bitcoin as time goes on, right? This whole idea that if we don't do something to inhibit spam at the at the block consensus level, that we're going to end up with 4 megabytes blocks from here on out, and that it's going to bloat the chain and it's going to grow way too fast and regular users aren't going to be able to use the chain anymore. This is just not a reality, right? The reality is that if it's really, really hard to have a 4 megabyte block on Bitcoin, it's very expensive. And if you want to do this continuously over and over and over and over again, you're going to be bidding against real users who want to get their money moved on the network. So in reality, guys, Bitcoin works perfectly fine. We don't need to inhibit Bitcoin's native programmability to make it less possible to do arbitrary, stupid things with the protocol. We want this to be a machine, a well-oiled machine. Bitcoin is an elegant sports car, right? You could take it and crash it into a bridge, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the sports car, right? There's this Luddite notion that just because people can take something and do, Bitcoin is just a tool, right? You could take a hammer and use it and do all kinds of dumb things with a hammer. You can use it to try to put a screw into a board. That's not what the tool was designed for. Can I stop you from taking your hammer and using it to try to put a screw into a board? No. Do I recommend you do that? No, you're probably going to break the screw. There's better tools for that. Bitcoin's not a data storage protocol, right? But we're not going to just we're not going to saw the handle off the hammer so that people don't try to use it to hammer in screws. It's just dumb. And there's never going to be any such thing as a political compromise between these fake Hegelian dialectic groups. The only thing you guys have done is manufacture conflict where there was none. Nobody likes spam, right? That's the only thing that we can all agree on. But all of your guys' propositions are stupid, and we're not going to hamstring Bitcoin's programmability to meet you halfway. We're not forking out op return. We're not reducing the size of the pubscript key. We're not doing all these stupid things. We want Bitcoin to be programmable and future-proof.